Oh, I've seen canned tuna, but never cantina.
Canned foods have gotten a bad reputation because we usually think about them in terms of beans and soggy peas. This is unfair because canned foods can also contain some delicacies. So grab a can opener and sample 10 unusual canned foods you need to try at least once.
Oh, you gotta try it.
Spotted dick.
I always thought spotted dick had something to do with Morgan Freeman.
Spotted dick is a very British dish that is actually a kind of sponge pudding. In this case, spotted refers to the fact that the pudding contains dried currants, and dick is an Old English word for pudding. Spotted dick is a traditional English pudding that is cooked or steamed in a metal container, so it's probably natural to sell this food in a can. This kind of pudding is actually a lot like a bread or a cake, and is definitely not to be confused with the creamy puddings eaten with a spoon that Americans are familiar with.
I'm different.
Recipes for spotted dick call for the use of suet, which is a raw beef fat. Some people might decide that raw beef fat might be a strange ingredient to include in a dessert recipe, but the British stand by this choice, so you can take it or leave it. If you're bored with the usual cookies and candy, this dessert certainly counts as a little unusual. Heinz is one of the companies that sells cans of spotted dick, but there are a lot of recipes online that you can experiment with as well. The next time you're looking for an afternoon snack, make some tea and give this very British dessert a try. Smoked rattlesnake.
Ah, rattlesnake.
Rattlesnake probably seems like an unusual food to most people, whether it's in a can or not. If you're a little bored with the usual steak and chicken, then this just might be one of the unusual canned foods you need to try at least once. According to people who have tried it, smoked rattlesnake has a slightly gamey flavor. Like a lot of other unusual meats, snake meat is often compared to chicken. You should know that when you buy a can of rattlesnake meat, it usually comes with the bones. These snake bones are small and would be easy to choke on, so take the time to make sure you've removed all the bones. You don't want to get an unwelcome surprise when you try to eat the snake meat.
Surprise! Surprise! Surprise!
A lot of people that eat rattlesnake like to make gravies and soups with the meat. There are a wide range of rattlesnake recipes to choose from online if you're interested in experimenting with this unusual meat. There are certainly less appetizing things than smoked rattlesnake meat that you could try. On the other hand, this meat is probably not on the verge of becoming the next big thing. Most people will likely be satisfied to stick with the usual beef, chicken, pork, and fish, but in case you want it, there is a can of smoked rattlesnake meat waiting for you on a shelf. Canned cheese.
Canned cheese? Made with 12% real cheese.
Cheese is sold in many forms, but canned cheese doesn't seem like it would be the best way to enjoy this popular dairy food. Yes, you can get cheese in a spray can, but is that really cheese? While the convenience of canned foods can sometimes trump quality, the Washington State University Creamery might have come up with a kind of canned cheese that deserves a place next to the other packaged cheeses. Cheese isn't something you would usually put in a can because the cheese-making process produces a lot of carbon dioxide gas as a byproduct. A problem can arise because the fermentation process continues after the cheese is canned, which will cause the cans to bulge and sometimes even break.
It's broken.
Researchers working at Washington State University have come up with a way to decrease the amount of carbon dioxide produced by introducing a new bacteria strain during the fermentation process. The new bacteria solves the bulging problem and makes canning cheese a much more attractive proposition. Washington State University used this product to make its signature canned cheese called Cougar Gold. The school's creation is described as a sharp cheddar cheese in a can that supposedly tastes as good as the other packaged cheeses you can buy at the supermarket. Boiled peanuts.
Help yourself to some boiled peanuts.
Peanuts are a popular snack, especially at baseball games, because a bag of peanuts goes great with a couple of cold ones. However, boiled peanuts in a can are not the kind of peanuts that most people are used to eating. Most people eat peanuts that have been dried and roasted, whether they are still in the shell or not. Boiled and canned peanuts are popular in parts of the southeastern United States. The fresh peanuts are boiled while they are still in the shell. When the peanuts are boiled, they taste different different than the dried and roasted version most people are used to eating. Despite its name, the peanut isn't actually a nut. The peanut is a kind of bean.
Wait, what?
Boiling peanuts preserves their natural texture and flavor much better than roasting them does. However, boiling peanuts makes them spoil quickly, but the canning process greatly extends their shelf life. This means that boiled peanuts are available to snackers all year round instead of just during the growing season. Just like roasted peanuts, the boiled variety is available in a selection of savory flavors, such as hot and spicy. Most people probably haven't tried canned boiled peanuts, but whether you want them spicy or plain, boiled peanuts are definitely an unusual canned food. Brown bread.
I baked some brown bread for the innkeep.
This isn't just any bread. This is brown bread that you can get with raisins, and it comes out of the can in a tube shape. The slices of this unusual bread are round, unlike most of the pre-sliced loaves of bread you buy at the supermarket. A generous amount of molasses in the recipe gives this bread a somewhat sweet taste to it, so it can be eaten as a tasty snack or even as a dessert in a pinch. The B&M Company is well known in New England and is famous for its traditional baked bean recipe, but also for its brown bread.
Now I'm famous.
B&M has been canning this brown bread since the 1920s, and the company bills it as a New England tradition. B&M started canning this bread in Boston in the early 20th century, but the bread's original recipe goes back as far as the 17th century. This kind of bread is a natural choice for canning because it has always been steam-cooked inside a metal can anyway. This probably wouldn't be the most colorful meal you've ever eaten, but go ahead and get yourself a can of baked beans and a can of brown bread. Gooseberries.
I did not myself savor many gooseberries in Jerusalem.
Maybe gooseberries aren't as popular as strawberries and blueberries, but it's fun to say gooseberries, and they have their place. You can get fresh or frozen berries, but you can also get them in a can. A can of gooseberries and light syrup will cost you around $10, but canned berries are an easy way to add more fruit to your diet. Unlike fresh fruits that spoil quickly, these canned berries can be stored on a shelf for months. Gooseberries are produced from gooseberry bushes, and there are two species of plants. Both species of gooseberries are related to black currants. One is the European plant, and the other is the American plant.
I'm an American.
Ripe gooseberries can be juicy and a little tart, and some people describe them as tasting a little bit like a grape. And like grapes, gooseberries can be used to make jams and preserves. You can find a lot of recipes online that use this berry. Gooseberry jam would probably make a fine addition to a peanut butter sandwich. Gooseberries used to be banned in the United States because they contributed to the spread of a tree disease called white pine blister rust. This disease used to be very destructive and threatened the lumber industry in some areas. Fortunately today, gooseberries are available at most supermarkets. Haggis.
You serve haggis?
No.
I'm out.
The word haggis doesn't sound very appetizing, and it turns out that it lives up to the name. Haggis is a traditional Scottish dish made from an unlikely mixture of sheep offal, oatmeal, and spices, and is cooked in a sheep's stomach. If you're not Scottish, offal might not be something you're familiar with, but you need to know it describes the various animal organs. Eating organ meats might not sound very appealing to a lot of people, but haggis is a dish the Scots eat when they are celebrating a holiday called Burns Night in honor of poet Robert Burns. Some Americans might be disappointed to learn that they can't get traditional haggis to celebrate any holidays because the U.S. Department of Agriculture banned the importation of this unusual food in 1971.
We ban you!
The use of sheep lungs in haggis recipes is what led to the ban because the USDA doesn't allow livestock lungs to be sold as food. In case you're still interested, there are some American companies that sell a version of haggis that was able to pass muster with the U.S. government. You can buy cans of haggis made with beef, lamb, and liver. However, the canned American version might not be considered to be as good as the traditional Scottish recipe. If you can get your hands on a can of haggis, you still might want to give it a try. Expensive mushrooms.
These mushrooms are amazing.
You may not associate the word fancy with canned foods, but this might change when you find out you can get fancy mushrooms or truffles in a can. You can choose from items like a creamy truffle porcini mix from Italy and chanterelles from France. These products can be a little bit more pricey than your average canned foods, with prices going as high as $12 for some varieties of canned mushrooms. These fancy and expensive mushrooms can be an exotic and tasty addition to many pasta dishes, or you can try eating them right out of the can.
Bob, you gotta try!
These mushrooms aren't like the usual can of corn or beans you buy at the supermarket. These mushrooms are actually a coveted delicacy despite being sold in a lowly metal can. Some people consider mushrooms to have a somewhat earthy flavor. They can be an acquired taste, and some people don't like the idea of eating mushrooms regardless of the reputation they enjoy. However you feel about eating fungi, these expensive truffles are one of the unusual canned foods you need to try at least once. Surstromming.
Canned fish.
Sometimes you have to wonder why certain foods continue to be eaten when there are so many other choices available. Surstromming is probably one of these foods. Surstromming is a kind of fermented Baltic sea herring. The fermentation process leaves this fish with a very strong odor that is very hard to forget. People in Sweden still want to eat this fish, and they consider it a delicacy. This delicacy is created using a fermentation process that requires less salt than the more common process because salt was once a scarce commodity. The process used for making this pungent delicacy is called lactic acid fermentation, and it produces a byproduct called hydrogen sulfide. It probably won't surprise you that hydrogen sulfide smells a lot like rotten eggs.
Oh no!
If rotten eggs sound appealing to you, then you might want to go out and get a can of Surstromming. This food has been called the smelliest food in the world, and there is no reason to believe it doesn't deserve this dubious honor. Tastes are a very subjective thing, and maybe some tastes are more subjective than others. It's a little difficult to believe that this fish is popular with a lot of people in Sweden and elsewhere, but sometimes traditions die hard, even when those traditions smell as bad as rotten eggs. Baba Ghanoush.
Hey, got some extra Baba Ghanoush.
Baba Ghanoush sounds like it could be the name of a Star Wars character you might find drinking at the cantina on Tatooine. It turns out there is no science fiction connection here because Baba Ghanoush is actually a kind of grilled eggplant dip. The eggplant is mashed until it has a creamy consistency. Most people might be familiar with the other Middle Eastern dip called hummus. Hummus is a popular food made with mashed up chickpeas instead of eggplant. Both dips are made with a sesame seed butter called tahini, salt, and lemon juice.
A rare combination indeed.
Some Baba Ghanoush recipes also include olive oil and various seasonings. If you're going to try to make your own dip, you can experiment with different combinations of seasonings. Baba Ghanoush is a traditional appetizer in the Middle East and is often served with an assortment of vegetables and pita bread. You could also try spreading this dip on crackers and toast. It doesn't have to be eaten just as an appetizer because Baba Ghanoush would also make a great snack or even a quick lunch. Baba Ghanoush is commonly sold in little plastic tubs, but some manufacturers do offer it in cans. Jump into another great video. Just tap or click. First time here, then leave us a comment, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell.